Hey, and hello. I'm so excited today to share another episode of Soulpreneur Scaling Stories with you. And today I have a very special guest, Amparo Rojas, who is an embodiment and energetics coach. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm super excited to be here to just share with the community. So thank you so much.
Amazing. So, before we get into anything deep, and we will get into it today, can you explain what you mean when you say, okay, I'm an embodiment and energetics coach? What does that mean to you?
Absolutely. All of last year, I was actually very focused on helping entrepreneurs grow their business. And I was beginning to recognize certain patterns with the type of women that I was calling in and even the clients that I had. And the two types of women that I was calling in and just really much attracting were either the women who were growing their business, but they were like hitting a certain income, like invisible ceiling. So they had the clients, they had stability in their business, they were getting visibility, but for some reason, they just couldn't grow beyond what they had. And the other type of women that I was helping was the woman who either had the partner, she had the perfect relationship, she was stable in that area, but she couldn't find that stability in her business. Like it was very difficult for her. And the other type of women that I was finding was that she was, the CEO, or she was, really growing and scaling in her professional job, but she wasn't able to find her partner. She really was very challenged in the love relationship and in the sisterhood relationship and in the partnership relationship. And that's when I made a pivot from helping just entrepreneurs to helping women in general, because I realized that these women were either successful in one area of their life, but they weren't seeing that much success in another area of their life. So, what I actually help women with now is through embodiment and energetics, we go to the root cause of what is causing them to not receive a certain desire. And I like to call that root cause the internal opposition, which is you have a desire, but internally there's an opposition, an emotional charge, a subconscious belief, a narrative that is so ingrained that it's causing them to not be able to receive the thing that they desire. So, through embodiment and through energetics, we begin to regulate their body, we begin to regulate their emotions, we really begin to synchronize them and sync them up to the desire. And once they do that, not only are they thriving professionally, but they're also thriving in the love department.
Oh, this is such an interesting combination of things, the professional, business, and love thrown in. And that's so interesting. Can you speak to, because I know you gave the example of your clients who were thriving, professionally but not in love and vice versa. Can you speak to what you believe underlies this? Like what's the connection between the two?
Yeah, I think what really is there, it's a profound memory that was imprinted to them that really caused them to isolate and to really close up emotionally, energetically, not so much mentally, because mentally they're saying, I really want this
Yeah.
thing, and vocally they're saying it, but their body is just so stuck in a certain emotional charge that it's really pushing away the thing that they want. So I was having this conversation with one of my clients yesterday because she's welcoming in love, and then she has this like partner that's incredibly supportive, and she was like, I want this and I want this and I want this, but we discovered that emotionally and energetically she was pushing away his support. And then we began to see the trail in how she pushes away sisterhood and certain clients. So really I do believe it's fear, more than anything, it's emotional. And I don't want to say it's easy, but once we really begin to tap into the emotions, into the body, there's this book, I've heard of it, I've never read it, but it makes sense, where I think the title is called The Body Keeps
I've
Score.
heard of this book, but I have not read it
Um,
either, but I've heard amazing things about it. Yeah.
yeah, so really the body does keep
Hmm.
score. And it's just like an emotional and energetic pushback.
Hmm. And when you are talking about the difference between, okay, so I think a lot of people can relate to somebody knowing in their mind, like, no, I really want this. And like, you know it logically, but I think you can feel in your body, or like you can kind of feel things coming up where it's not embodied, right? Like where it's, you don't really truly believe it. So what can you tell, what can you speak to in regards to that, like this disconnect? And maybe is there a thing that you can share that maybe closes that gap a little bit between the mind and the body?
Absolutely. I'll share my
Yeah.
examples because I feel like that's where I'm headed through this. But I have a client who she's pivoting. She, has seen certain, stability and safety within her business. She has clients. She's getting her message out there. But this pivot is coming from all the internal work she has been doing. And she realized, I'm in these rooms, but they just don't feel like they're my rooms anymore. And one of the things that I invited her to do was to get
Hmm.
into new rooms where the invitation was to regulate herself to that new reality or to that new outcome. And that's one of the practices that I teach, right? When you want more intimacy with, for example, a partner, move the body, get into the spaces where you're being shown that it's safe, right? That it is safe to be intimate and to be vulnerable. And after time, your own body begins to synchronize and to just really regulate to that until you begin to notice that your own body now feels safe to express intimacy and vulnerability.
That's beautiful. And again, this connection between like business and romantic life, I find this to be so, so interesting. So you brought up your client who was pivoting, and let's dive into that a little bit more because that's what my audience here, everybody listening to this, they're kind of thinking about it. And it can be something, you know, what I see is that when somebody goes from their 9 to 5 and transitions into their own business, there's this period of, okay, I'm doing this, and there's so much regulation that has to be done. There's so much courage, so much bravery. You do this, you build your business, okay, you leave your 9 to 5, you have this thing. And then at some point, there also comes a time where it's like, oh, like this is not quite feeling right anymore. Like my purpose maybe feels like it's a little bit different. So, but in that time, then it's another transition period, right? It's another period of, oh, I have to do this again. And like, this is another growth stage. And so this is what I work with my clients through. And it's a really beautiful journey. And I think a lot of things that come up, and I'm interested from your kind of energetics embodiment perspective, that a lot of what comes up is that it takes time, right? So when you are pivoting, and this can be a pivot of, I'm totally changing my offers to even just to, I'm up leveling and changing the level of client that I'm talking to. So by pivoting, it's kind of the gamut. It doesn't really matter in a way because it's a change. You have to sit in it. You have to grow with it, be comfortable again with the uncomfortable, with the new, all of these things, right? So in this space, when it's going to take time to actually make this transition, just like it did in starting a business, what would you say in terms of things that you've seen, things that can be done, things that often come up for you from this energetics embodiment standpoint with clients that you would see?
Yeah, so just what I'm hearing you say is maybe just
Yeah.
clarifying here, what are some practices and like energetics and embodiment practices that they get to practice while they regulate, or
So
is that the
yeah,
question,
yeah, I
or
think, or honestly, anything that kind of comes up for you. So anything that you feel called towards to speak towards, like I'm very curious and interested in it. So whether it be practices, whether it be things that you see, also, in this time period, that's really for them, for somebody in this space to consider. So kind of anything from your expertise in that area.
yeah. Okay, so I'm trying to think of like maybe an example or like maybe a personal
Yeah.
example of mine. I think one of the things that I see strongly, okay, so if I could go back 4 or 5 years when I first started out entrepreneurship, and just to give a little bit more of context here for anyone listening, I grew up in a very chaotic household, and I'm sure many, many, many people, many women listening are going to resonate with this, but I grew up in a very chaotic, toxic environment, and there was abuse, physical, sexual abuse. There was a lot of trauma, a lot of poverty, a lot of scarcity, and that was my normal, right? That's how I was operating in my life. So I was never really asked, "What do you want?"
Mm.
Right? Like, I can never recall a time where my teachers, my mother, my father, my uncles, no one ever really asked me, "What do you want? What are your dreams? What are your goals?" I remember them asking, like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Right? Or them placing me into dancing classes or into art classes without even asking what were my preferences. So when I grew up, when I started entrepreneurship, I never really asked myself, what do I
Mm.
want? Right? Like I saw women leaving their 9 to 5s because they were not happy. And then all of a sudden they found something that they were happy. And then that led them to opening up a business. But one of the things that I like to teach my clients and any women that I work with is the definition of
Mm.
sovereignty and what sovereignty actually means. And I think, like, in the most simplest form, sovereignty means, what do you want? Like, what do you truly want? What do you want,
Right.
right? And that's kind of like a loaded question, but what do you want in a relationship? What do you want in entrepreneurship? And then the second piece to that is integrity. Integrity, defining it in my way, is taking the action and aligning to the thing that you
Mm-hmm.
want. And when you are practicing sovereignty and when you are practicing integrity, you really begin to create a lot of alignment in your life. And when I first started, in the coaching industry, I had every coach telling me, you have to do master classes and you have to do group coachings and you have to do this and you have to do that. And I was doing all that. And like many other women, I burned out heavily, and I was caught up in this space of like, I love helping women, but I'm no longer fulfilled or happy. And I think one of the things that happens through embodiment and energetics is that there's this continual refinement in your own energy. And when you're refining your energy, when you are refining your levels of embodiment and leadership, that question, what do you want, becomes more clear. And I saw it happen with myself because I no longer do group coachings and one on one. I actually really simplified my
Mm-hmm.
business to a business model that brings me so much joy. And funny enough, it brings me more income now, more simplified than when I was trying to do 4 things at once. And to answer your question, I see it happening with my clients too. I see them really asking themselves, what do I want? And taking bolder action towards what they want. So that's what I'm seeing with energetics and embodiment, that when we're more connected with our body, we're actually creating more synergy, more alignment, more clarity, more attunement, and really more fulfillment overall.
I have so many directions that I want to take this. So I
Yeah.
think so. Yes, and I do a similar thing in coaching as you, and I love when I talk to other people who have, a similar, they're teaching similar things, because you are right. When somebody tells you, well, this is the way to grow your business, it's you're like, okay, and you just kind of listen to them, because you're like, okay, well, they know what they're talking about. I'm trusting them. And you do it. And then you're like, well, but wait a minute. Well, like, it takes, when you're in that space, it takes a minute to be like, wait, like, why am I doing this? When you're so the story that I always tell, and so my apologies for anybody who's listening who's heard this before, is that when I first started out, I was a virtual assistant, and I accidentally created an agency because I didn't know I was getting these clients, and I didn't know what else to do when my business was leading me. And I didn't enjoy it. I was making money, but it wasn't something that I really wanted to do. And it took me, and then I just had to burn it all down and start again, So it took me a minute to figure out to figure all of this out. I mean, it took me years, but when it's, more recently, once I did all of this work and kind of studied all of these things, when it came time for me to, I realized that I was really burnt out I was an online business manager doing just one-on-one OBM client work, and this was burning me out. And when I was like, what am I to do? When I was at that point with this type of learning and mindset, I relied on my own intuition and feelings and what was happening inside of me to figure out what to do. And I think it's such a key moment in somebody's business journey and life journey, honestly, where it's learning to trust yourself and how you're feeling versus the learning or just the blindly saying, okay, I guess this is what I'm supposed to do. Because there's such a difference there in how you show up. And that affects everything from your business to your love life to just your day-to-day to all of your relationships, because it's such a different space that you sit in when you're actually learning to trust yourself and figure out what it is that, yes, in your terms, what your sovereignty is, and then making the decisions to get to that space.
Yeah, I love what you said, sitting in a different space, because it really does feel like that, sitting in a different space. And I will even add another layer to this, which is, when I shared about like the trauma and the upbringing, and when I started, opening up to the concept that I was a creator of my life, I wanted to create, and I wanted to just be successful and achieve wealth and income. And that was like my main priority. And I'm talking about like 3 years ago still. And then I awakened to the realization that, wow, I'm not the creator of my life. I'm the co-creator of my life. And I really just call it God. And when I took off that heavy weight of, I need to make this work, and I really embraced the line, we're going to make this work, right? Like God and I are going to make this work. It was almost like this giant heavy weight just fell off. And then I was open to the realization of like, wow, like I do want a successful business, and I also want to be a mother. I want to get married. I want to really have this beautiful, harmonious life. And I don't need, for me personally, I don't need millions and millions of dollars. Like I want to feel comfortable and more than comfortable. So that was another piece too that I'm beginning to realize that the women that I work with, and I'm sure like many of your community is resonating, that, they're working with something much larger that is really helping them create. And when we take off that pressure of, I need to do this, then something comes in and just really begins to place the pieces together, like at a life overall perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that and have felt similarly, I suppose I will say, in that it's, and also, hand in hand with that, yeah, it's funny because it's like 17 thoughts at the same time. My apologies. I keep starting a sentence and I'm like, wait, no, I want to say something else. That, so along the same lines, I actually have a book next to me that's called It's Not Your Money by Tasha Silver, which is along the same lines. I don't know if you've heard of this book, but it's really good, where it takes it's God's money. It's all of our money. It takes the pressure off when you feel like there's somebody, I'm taken care of, right? Like whatever's going to happen
Mm.
is going to happen. And as long as I'm in my highest self, then it's going to be like, I'm going to be taken care of and I'm going to succeed because there's no other option, you know?
Oh, yeah, yeah, and I have actually seen that doors
Mm-hmm.
open. Like, they're just opening, and just being in that awe state in life, it just feels more fulfilling because I speak from personal experience, and I think, like, a lot of the women that I worked with at one point were just really about business and achieving in business, and they found purpose there, and many women do just want purpose in business, and that's perfectly okay, but I'm speaking to the women who are saying, "You know what? I actually do want kids. I actually do wanna get married. I actually, you know, do want
Mm-hmm.
sisterhood. I don't just want a successful business." So yeah, it was a beautiful pivot that happened when I was just like, "All right, take over."
Well, but and this pivot, I imagine it was something that felt so like, like a relief almost. It's like this is right. Like I'm going in the right direction, and it's not just on me. It's like I know
Yeah,
I'm supported. So, and then it allows you to step more fully into yourself.
absolutely,
And
yes.
I'm curious, I wanted to go back as well to you were saying that you had your business set up in ways that the structure of your business that all these coaches were saying, oh, do this, do this, do this. And then you said, oh, I'm not doing any of that. And then I was sitting here wondering, well, what is the structure of your business? So I'm curious what your business looks like and how you came to that road? Like, how did you arrive at that place to structure it in that way and knowing that this was the most supportive to you?
So, how I came to that was I intentionally take sabbaticals,
Mm.
and I for a whole month I'm in human design, I'm a manifester, so I intentionally take these business sabbaticals just to really get in tune with, like, my heart and my essence and my soul and God. I have a very deep relationship with spirit, and I take myself twice a year to a space. I love being in nature, and I love being by the ocean, and that's really where I find the most clarity. So I was in Tulum, Mexico last year for a whole month, and I was just not trying to do anything. I wasn't like finding answers or give me answers. I was like, if God wants to deliver this message, he will. And it wasn't until the last day when I was on my way back to the States where everything just started coming in. And what the message was, simplify your business. Simplify your business, get really in tune with one thing, master that one thing, really hone in on that one thing. Because even before, I was trying to work, I was trying to create content, I was trying to get clients. And even in that simplifying, it's like I have so much room, so much capacity. I feel so nourished to just be in my art and to create. And that was a massive shift for me because before it was like I had to motivate myself and I had to do all these things. And there's a different current behind a pull to come and create a
Mhm.
business versus setting and manifesting and getting goals and needing to do it. So during that 1 month sabbatical, I received that message, simplify, hone in on what you're here to do. And that's what really unlocked all of this clarity, and where I realized, wow, I can help entrepreneurs grow their business, but I also can help female leaders or women who are just wanting like a very solid, stable, happy, harmonious life. So I try to do those sabbaticals, and that's really where I find a lot of clarity and where I knew like, okay, it's time to simplify. And right now, what it looks like is I work with one on
Hmm.
one clients. It's one on one. And then I also went from fully being online for the past 5 years to now integrating myself back into community. I have live workshops, I have in person master classes. So I do a lot of more in person, um, which in human design, I'm a 2-4. So my line 4 is really the networking. And I realized that the women that I connect with really open up a lot of opportunities for me. So I was like, wow, I was limiting myself in just being online. And when I took that sabbatical and the message was simplify and go in person, that's when a lot of things started opening up. So I often encourage women to really tune out the noise. And I'm sure you do this with your clients too. Like, tune out the noise, really
Hmm.
connect with your own sovereignty and what you want, and then begin to move in that
Hmm.
direction.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't say it better myself. So I really love that example as well, where, and I find this, and I'm sure everybody finds this, that it's when you step away from your laptop, when you go into nature, when you just really release everything, that's when the truth comes to you. That's when the best ideas come. And that's when you know that this is, your intuition. This is your highest self. Like, this is what you should be doing. And to trust it and to take those steps forward, to kind of feel into it. Because when I feel like for myself, I kind of get these hits and I feel it. I'm like, okay, let me sit with this for a minute and say, okay, like, yes. And like, now I understand that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's a really beautiful place to get to kind of experiment with that and get to this place and arrive in this place where you can trust yourself and when you can trust these decisions and know that you're taken care of, and it's a bonus when you see all the results that come from it, right? And so that way you're able to, it allows you to further that connection, further that trust, and to keep taking these steps forward. So I really loved all these examples, and thank you so much for sharing all of this. If you had one final tip, like one thing that you would like to share for somebody who is pivoting and growing and stepping into their business, what would that be? Or that new level of their business, sorry. What would that be?
I don't know if this is a tip, but it's for sure like a reminder more than
Yeah.
anything. We tend to focus on like the linear growth of our life, our love, our sisterhood, our business, and through energetics and embodiment. And when you're practicing embodiment and really bringing in energetics into your life, we're working with the quantum realm, and we're working with like a higher force. And I always, have to remind myself, and I often remind my clients of this. I always tell them, be incredibly grateful for where you are right now, because in 6 months, that is not going to be the case anymore. And to focus more on the quantum realm versus the linear, because a lot of the times we think this isn't working, I don't see the results, I don't see the outcome. And when we shift that perspective and when we really strengthen and fortify that faith and that trust in our own work and in the quantum realm, things just really begin to flow. So, that's a tip that if right now you're not seeing the outcomes and the results in your life that you want to see, begin to open up and expand the consciousness to the current of the quantum field and know that things are already on their way, and that piece to your puzzle is beginning to fall into place. And yeah, it feels better.
For sure. And please let everybody know where they can find you, how they can connect with you, and if there are any free gifts or anything else that you want to share.
Yeah, so right now I currently am on Instagram. So I love Instagram. They can find me, anyone who feels connected and who maybe just wants to share their story or, just wants to connect further. It's Amparo Rojas __. So Instagram is great. I love Threads. I'm finding Threads to be such an incredible platform. I have really connected with a lot of women on Threads, and I find that Threads is also like a throat opener. Like you just really activate your
Yeah.
voice. So that's been really powerful and helpful. And then I do have a master class in the beginning of June. It's called Synergy. So we'll be working with the energetics of creating more synergy in your life and in your business. So for anyone who, is on the edge of a new level, whether it's the women who wants to call in collaborations that feel in alignment, clients that feel like sisterhood, or just really break past the invisible ceiling of the income. Synergy is a masterclass where I'm going to teach them how to do that and how to bring in that energy into their business. So the date, I don't have it right now. I'm finalizing that, but it's for sure the first week of June. Yeah, and that's definitely some ways in which we can connect.
Amazing, beautiful. Thank you so much, Amparo, for being here and sharing your magic and your wisdom with us. This is really, really lovely.
This was so wonderful. Thank you so much.